Good morning and hello peoples of the internet. Today on the internet show we are going to work on this Hudson never pump battery operated sprayer. So when this thing first crapped out on me, which was the other day, it simply stopped working and I thought, oh, you know what, it's probably the battery. The battery is probably dead. Well, yeah, you know, I tested it. The battery was kind of crappy. It's kind of going, but it's really not dead. So anyway, I got a new battery, which is this red one here, and I connected it, and it still doesn't work. That's right, it's still busted. So I started taking the thing apart, and I said, you know what do we got in here? So we got a battery, we got a couple of switches, we got a little beeper thing that tells you that it's on, and then we got a pump over here, which you can see. And the pump, originally they had stuck this label over the pump label, which I find to be obnoxious because you're just trying to stop somebody from fixing something. And now it says it's SX-2207, and it's an SX-2207, and that's great. Now if you go to the SHE site, it's actually pronounced C-say, which is S-C-E and then S-A. That's actually how they pronounce it in English. And they make this unit. Now this unit sells for about $175 on Amazon. And if you go onto the C-say site, you'll see that they make the exact same unit, this guy right here, in red with the word C-say on it. And in bulk they sell them for about $33 each. Now of course for Hudson, they make this in yellow, and that's literally the only difference. And of course, they ship them over here. Hudson puts its label on it, its sticker on it, and then of course puts a sticker over the C-say pump and jack up the price and sell it. So if you go to buy one of these pumps for these things, and it's a pretty anemic pump as pumps go. I mean, you're looking at a 12-volt pump, and this is where the anemic part comes. It's a 2.6 liter per minute flow pump running off of 1.8 amps, which is super anemic. So you're going to find when you go looking for this pump replacement that every pump is about twice as strong as this. And even the double power pump that you can buy, which is, you know, like 3 amps, it sells for about $14 on Amazon, and you can get it on AliExpress for like $6 or $7. I think it's $6. And so you figure, what is this? This is like a $5 pump. Well, when you go looking for this on the internet, now C-say is a holding company in Ningbo, China. And it's been around since 1978, but it's a holding company, meaning that even though you've got a label on here that says C-say, it's probably representing, you know, a few dozen other manufacturers making various and sundry things, and then they're putting their label on top of this. And as you can see, I almost peeled off this thing, but I couldn't find a label under it. So I'm assuming that the Chinese did a good job and used this as their original label when it came right from whatever the factory was that actually made this. Because as a holding company, C-say probably doesn't have an actual factory. They just take other people's stuff and stick their label on it. Well, anyway, if you go around the internet and you try to pull up an SX-2207, yeah, there's some guy in Georgia. His company sells these for like $50. Now this is a $5 motor. $5 motor at best. And if they're selling cheap for $5, they're making a pretty good profit. So why would you pay $50 for this? You wouldn't, unless you're an idiot. So what's your other option? You could put in a bigger motor. You could put in the $14 one or the $7 one, depending on where you get it from, and have twice the power. And that's fine. That'll work because the mounting holes are in the same place and all the parts are the same. It's going to draw twice the current, so the battery's going to last half as long. But depending on how much spraying you're doing, that may not even be an issue. All right. This is pushing out at 80 psi. Okay, the other one pushes out probably about the same. Usually they're 80 and above. Again, not an issue. So what's plan B? You don't want to get a different motor. Well, The plan B is really simple. You take this one apart and you fix it. So going back to YouTube, there's a whole bunch of folks that take apart these pressure pump motors. And the way that they do it is they unscrew these 7 screws, right? They pull this thing apart, they spray it. Oh, you have to do both sides. It's the same on both sides. So the way that this works is this is a diaphragm pump. And the motor, which is an electric motor, spins, and that causes a reciprocating motion, which pushes the little piston up and down. Imagine that, squishing back and forth, and that is what pushes the fluid out. So they take it apart, they spray it down with brake cleaning fluid, or a brake parts cleaner, I should say, or carb cleaner. Either one's going to work. Do not use WD-40. So the reason you don't want to use WD-40 is because WD-40 will melt the rubber, especially if there's silicone in there. I don't know if there is, but it looked like it on some of the videos. So you want to use brake parts cleaner or carb cleaner, and you want to take apart both sides, clean it out really good, and that should get it working again. And if it doesn't, well, then you got to replace it. So anyway, that's the next part of this video. I will be tearing this down and and cleaning it before the replacement. And the easiest way to do this is there's a hose right over here. We're going to use our clamp that we use for the fuel lines in the car. We're just going to squeeze it shut, and that will prevent any fluid from coming out. We'll disconnect this side, and then we'll take this thing apart. And we'll be back in just a sec with that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the cluttered workbench here, and we have pulled out our pump motor. This is our diaphragm pump that we took out of our Hudson sprayer. And we are going to take apart this side, and then we're going to take apart this side. And then we are going to spray it down with some good old carb cleaner, and this is the AutoZone carb cleaner. It's whatever the cheapest carb cleaner happened to be, and was closest to my hand when I went into the store. And we also have over here some rubber hose. Now you're going to say, why do you have rubber hose? Because when I was clamping off the hose in the other Hudson thing for the bottom part to keep the fluid from coming out, yeah, I had the whole thing full, and that's why I needed to do that. So that, yeah, cracked. So I had to go get a piece of rubber hose. Luckily, also, the auto parts store sold this to me for $2. And the most important part is it's 5/16, so it doesn't matter that this is fuel line hose and the other stuff isn't fuel line hose. It makes no difference at all. So anyway, here we go. I'm going to start taking this apart, and let me clamp this down. Alrighty, so found the right bit, and we're just taking this apart right now. We're going to do one side, we're going to reassemble it, we're going to clean it, well, we're going to do one side, and then we're going to spray it with the carb cleaner, clean it all out, and then we're going to do the other side, put it all back together. We've got our battery over here we're going to test it against, make sure it works. That should be interesting because there's kind of a built-in system that doesn't let it work if there's not enough fluid to prevent it from damaging its own internal components. I think that's how it works. I mean, it's certainly connected to this alarm over here that tells you when it needs to be alarmed. Ah, here we go. So we have a spring right over here. Make sure we don't lose that. That goes over this guy. Again, these are the things that go up and down, squish, 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 and that pushes through this guy over here. And we're going to take this apart carefully. We're going to lift up this. This is a rubber compound over here. We're going to very gently, carefully remove this so we can get at the inside of this. And you never want to. You don't want to rip this thing. That's something important. And you don't want to lose any components. Luckily, that spring is just sitting in there. We are going to pull this out. Sorry if you can't see what I'm doing over here. I'm going to use a little flat-bladed screwdriver if I can find one that's right for the task. Might be a little too big. Work my way around the exterior, the perimeter of this. Try to get this up and out before we clean out the insides and then go. flexible. It feels like, it doesn't feel like a rubber. It feels more like a flexible plastic is probably the best way I can describe it. But we are going to get the edges up over here. There we go. You hear that little sound, that popping sound that just popped? That is the sound of like wet suction popping. So I'm assuming that's a good thing. Again, I want to break this because I do not have replacement parts. I need to put this back together properly. I'm going to go in here and pull out this little guy. Okay, now he's got a little O-ring around him. And I believe he's the one that goes back and forth and up and down. But with him out, should be able to pull this out without damaging anything. I'll pop out the other side now. I believe this comes out as well. Let's try to get this out as well. Probably should have used it's got a spring on it, so that's a good thing. Use smaller pliers if I got them. I'm looking for them right now. Okay, I'm going to go around the perimeter here. Working our way back to the top. And don't rush this. I always tell people don't rush this, and I always tend to rush it myself. So I guess I don't follow my own advice. But yeah, don't rush this. You don't want to rush this. You just want to take your time. And if it takes too long, well, obviously I'll edit the video so as to spare you all the pain and suffering. Or did the other guy pull this whole thing apart? I'm pretty sure he did. Can't imagine he did not. I know that this comes out. You know, you just know it comes out. You don't want to come. Let's try and grab them with these guys, shall we? There we go. That's the ticket. Alright, there's a spring directly under here, as you can see. I'll go ahead and grab this guy. Okay. Put him there. And for whatever the reason, and I don't know why, I can get this up to a degree, but then I can't get it past whatever is stopping me over here. Again, I don't know why. Or I should say I don't know what's stopping me over here. I'm assuming that it is a gear motor issue. So, we're going to say, because I can see, what? Where did that come from? That came from under there. Okay. So this guy came from the underside of this. So that guy came from the underside of that along with that spring there. Alrighty. And it's the exact opposite on the other side. I don't know what's going on over here. I gotta be honest. I don't know if you can see this, but I don't know if this was molded on here like this, and that's why it's so difficult to remove, or what. I'm gonna have to leave it in place, unfortunately, because even though I can get that side of it, that edge of it up, I am concerned prying this off would cause more damage than it's worth. Or maybe not. Looks like there's a piece in there that then goes deep into the other thing. It doesn't look like it's worth taking apart. Okay. Alright. Well, we will clean out this section where the water comes in and out. And hopefully this will fix it. I don't know. But let's take a look. Okay, we liberally sprayed the crap out of that. And now we're going to put this back together by putting the spring back into here, like so. Okay. We're going to put this little guy back onto here, like so. And this is going to go to there, like, oops. Well, as you can see, immediately we figure out, well, this little guy, he wants to go this way, right, right. He's in there. And that, you know, this is one of those times where you're like, this is too easy. This is way too easy. This can't be right. This simply can't be right. This can't be, it can't be this easy. There's no way on God's green earth that it is this easy. Can't be. Can't be. Cannot be. It cannot be the case. Okay. And once I get the this bit stuck back in here. Again, first, I don't know what was under here or why it's under here. When I was prying it off, it didn't want to come out, and I don't know what that's about. So instead of breaking it, I decided to leave well enough alone and only take it so far. And again, I don't know if this is going to work, so I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. And we are going to reassemble this. Put our little spring back in here, making sure that it fits onto there perfectly. It fit. It fit. Perfect. Nice. Okay. Now this is interesting. So, as I'm messing around over here, it felt like I'm going to have to push in feels like I have to go around and feed this gasket in a little bit better because it doesn't feel like the gasket is really in, like where it was when we started this process. So we're going to go around here, around the perimeter, and reseal this gasket until we get it actually in where it's supposed to go. And I may have to use a tiny little flathead screwdriver if I can find one. Nope, that's not a flathead. We'll go here and use this one. Okay, so I'm going to put this over here like this, and I am going to go into here like this. And as you can see, I'm feeding this in, and maybe you can't see, I don't know. My giant fingers are probably in the way, but I am going to force this down all the way around, millimeter by millimeter, as it were. Again, we're going to take that out just for right this second. And we're going to push this guy in like that, which leads me to believe that only the back needs to be tucked in, as it were. There we go. I can feel it seating. I can actually feel it going in, which is good, which means that now this guy should properly seat. Oh, I popped it out. Look at that. As easily as I popped it in, I popped it out. Force that puppy back in there. Working our way once again around the perimeter to the back. So this is a pain. And yeah, lots of things are pain, but this is like surprisingly painful. I don't know why. I mean, you would think that once something pops in or out or wherever it pops, right, it would be okay. I don't know what that's about. I mean, it's been in here since the thing was made, so you would assume that that's the way it should be. And it's not going to give you any trouble yet. That's exactly what it's doing. It doesn't want to go back in. Both hands here to try to get this puppy to pop in. She don't want to pop in. Oh, that resounding snap is a beautiful, beautiful sound, because it tells me that I'm almost in. Almost all popped in. I'm still working it here, still going around, and I'm getting it in here. Did I get it? Did I get it? I think I got it. I don't know if I got it. I think. Okay, what do we got here? Disc. Slime. Slimy disc. Okay. Small, slimy ass disc. Slimy ass disc. Where it goes in. Where it goes out. This is the diaphragm. Must be. No. No, it's not. This is the diaphragm right here. What is this shit? This is just to tell it to fire itself up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are having a learning experience today, let me tell you. It's a heck of a day. We got our little disc over here. We're going to clean this up. And we're going to find out what is going on here. Alrighty, we got a disc. We got a O-ring, right? O-ring seal here. Okay, that's going to have to go back in. Crud in here, damn. Look at all this shit. muddy crud. This is like rust, you know? Definitely got a rusty tone to it. You know, they always tell you, don't worry, it's not gonna, whatever you're using, it's not gonna hurt the seals on this thing. Yeah, I'm gonna call bullshit on that. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to use the carb cleaner on. Holy cow. Alright, hopefully that'll flash off in a second. Should use the brake parts cleaner. That's greasy. Flashes off way faster. But gotta deal with what we gotta deal with. Okay. This guy over here. Get around this. Yeah, just a line. Nothing special. Goes like this maybe? Nope. Goes like this. Okay. We got this guy over here. He goes like this. On top of this guy. Okay. Now we got this whole thing going back in here. Alrighty. Great. Just fucking great. Is this ever gonna work? I don't know. Truth be told, I do not know. I got no clue. I got no clue if I can make this thing work. And that's where all the fun comes in, kids. You have no friggin' clue if you can make this thing work or not. It's all a mystery. Alrighty, so here we are. We have reinstalled our CSA pump motor, pressure pump, back into the bottom portion of the sprayer, and we've connected it with its little hose clamp over here. We've got our fresh brand new battery, which is fully charged right there. And again, like I said, just to recap this, we took this apart, we sprayed it down with carb cleaner, we took the other side apart, we did the same thing. And the way that this works, which is really kind of neat, you know, the more I was looking at it, the more I was figuring it out. I'm sure there's probably an animation on YouTube or somewhere on the internet that shows how this exactly works. But to put it simply, the motor spins, right, because it's an electric motor, and there's a little guy in here that goes back and forth. Now, when I had this apart, you saw that big rubber thing. Well, the water is on top of the rubber thing. It's not under it. It's on top of it. So as the water comes in from this side, it goes in here, and this little guy goes back and forth. It pushes that water into this one, which pushes it out. Now, the other side is doing the exact same thing, and I'm not sure if they are in sync with each other or if they are moving like that, and you get a chance to look. Which would kind of make sense if they were doing the back and forth thing, because then one would be doing, it would almost be like a circular thing. And of course, the water goes on top. It goes on top of that diaphragm, and as it's pushing, right, and it's going very fast, by the way, it's moving the water very quickly and building up the pressure. And once it gets up to a certain pressure, this diaphragm in here gets pushed, and that kicks it off and shuts the whole thing off once it reaches that pressure. I can't remember if this, which is the buzzer, I can't remember if the buzzer is for low water or low battery. It might be for low battery. I can't remember. Anyway, just going to touch down in here so you can see the button over here, and show you that this is actually working. I'm only going to do this for a split second because there's no water in here, and what I don't want to do is damage the pump by not having any fluid in it. So let's do a quick test. I'm Pushing the button, pushing the button. You hear that? It just went. Yep, just like that. There we go. That is the sound of a working motor, and that's great. So I have my hose over here, and the next part of this is I'm going to be attaching the hose to here with the little clamp, and well, I'm going to cut a correct section of it, and then I'm going to swap it into, I'm going to swap out the other hose, or maybe I'll swap out the other hose and jam it in there from the container that holds the reservoir tank. All right, ladies and gentlemen, she is spraying. Look at that. See that engine purr? Yep. And there she is. She is spraying away. And pro tip, everybody, if you're going to work on one of these things, empty out the container. It is just infinitely easier to do the work with an empty container without having fluid and crap spilling all over you, which is just a nightmare. Also, check for leaks, because there's probably going to be some leaks. Now, if I take this off, now normally it would do that thing like it's doing right there, and it would go up to a higher pitched sound, and then it would cut off at a certain point. And I'm not sure what that point is. I'm hoping that it's not still pumping and that the pressure is causing it to squeeze out and fill up in the basin there. That's what I'm hoping. But it's still running, so that's probably not good. Anyway, I'm going to check that. Another pro tip is run clear water through these things after you spray a bunch of weed killer or whatever you're spraying, insect spray or whatever, because even though it says like, hey, all of our seals are safe for this and that and the other thing, yeah, they may be, but crud builds up on those seals, and that's where you get all kinds of problems from, like what I had, where it was causing the motor to not work. So, at least I think that's what it was. Anyway, taking it apart and putting it all back together seemed to have fixed the problem. And it looks like I'm running out of my clear water, because that's what I was using in here to flush this. So that's going to be about it. Alrighty.